Have you ever had any creepy experiences in the woods? Share here, I can't get enough of this stuff. Greater than 2006. Camping in PA with scouts. One kid brought some airsoft guns, we head into the woods to play. Apparently the site is next to an older camp that's been abandoned, decided would be a better map and play there. Game goes on for a while, it starts getting dark. Turns a corner just in time to see one kid go into one of the cabins. Gonna go get that camping noob. Go into the cabin, it's dark but I can still see decently well. Walls are rotting and look like they probably weren't of great quality to begin with, plenty of cracks to let what's left of the sunlight in. It's a long room with a concrete floor, open door to a small room at the back. He must be in there. Slowly creep up and ready my pistol. As I walk across the room there's a growing sense of unease. Realize I can't hear anyone else, no shots, talking, nothing. Instead of backing out, I keep heading for the back room, figure I'll feel better when I catch up with my enemy. Ready up and jump into the tiny back room. No one. Room is very small, nowhere to hide and no way to exit, just tiny holes in the tiled walls where sinks would have been mounted and the door as the only light sources. Turn and sprint out of the cabin, no one else is in the camp now, but I hear voices shouting in the woods. Run through the woods in the direction of the voices until I find some of the scouts, among them the kid I thought I had followed into the cabin, who were in the process of capturing one of my teammates. Kid I was looking for tells me we've been called back to camp. When I ask him he says he wasn't in that cabin near the end of the game.
A couple times, but they tend to boil down to wander woods, stumble across building, explore building with a profound sense that something is watching us, or that something is wrong, inevitably leave, go back into woods in search of that building only to never find it again. Why is that? I know that the rational reason is because we lost track of where the building was, but I've seen so many stories where people found something, get overcome with a sense of dread, and then the building seemingly vanishing. Hell, one story I read had a guy stumble across an entire forgotten neighborhood that apparently never existed.
Greater than 8 years old. At friend's house who's out in the sticks. Hiking down the trail. Taking a shortcut. Come across a field. There's a wooden barn at the other side of the field. Ask friend about it. He's never checked it out. Come on, let's check it out. Walk over there. Main door open. There's another wall and door cutting the barn in half. Open it. Empty stables and nothing but a stick in the ground. On the stick is a deer leg. I'm about to freak out. Friend wants to check it out. Bad idea. He slowly walks there. Sticks his finger out. Touches it. Screams and starts running. I follow. Don't stop until we're halfway back to his place. I ask what made him scream. Anon, it was still warm.
Similar thing happened to me. About 13 years old. Lived on a house near a forest. Got home with older brother, 17. Dad calls, tell us to get something in his cabin that is a little away from the main house and etc. Go there. Opens door first as brother was talking to dad of WTF he wanted. Sees broken window and a whole deer on the floor. Hey brother, come see this. Said that it maybe got scarred, jumped of the window and died of broken rib or something. Brother goes in, move the dead deer. There is a big chunk of it missing. Anon, the bite is fresh. We run as much as we can. Get locked in home and calls our dad. Dad gets in with uncle. Turns out there was a huge bear sleeping some 50 meters away from the cabin. Dad and uncle killed it.
I've never told these stories before except to the friends I experienced both stories with. They may or not coincide. If anyone has an idea of what on earth happened in these, please let me know. Going to give some background to help. These happened within a month of each other. First occurred about early December, the other very early January. The area is Axton, Virginia. If anyone is familiar with the area, it's just a multitude of woods and open tobacco land. Also not going to greenest cause, doing this from terrible phone with dying keyboard. First storied me and two friends. I was 15, they were 18, 19. Nothing to do, it's winter break, some decide to go explore and smoke some weed. So we walk up the road about a mile and see a old cabin building, extremely common in the area, surrounded by woods. Seclusive.jpg go and start looking around at standard old cabin. Half is a tobacco dry house and rest is a small stable, most likely for a cow and some chickens. Building is old and nowhere to sit, so we decide to go to the back of the building and roll up there. Go around the building and see bones everywhere, recent bones, littered everywhere in a 20 by 20 foot area, and they were all relatively new, so we figure screw this, must be a bear's home or a pack of wolves, but it's about noon, so whatever, smoke and talk then leave. Well, we decide the next day to go back, and that's when the weird starts. Get back behind building about same time as the day before, and nearly all the bones are gone except for the larger ones. He'll never forget it, they had been arranged to spell something, 2 words, I will use X for characters we couldn't recognize, KRVCOLRMK. Nope the heck out of there and never returned. Second story, staying at friend's house, we get bored at night and decide we are gonna sneak out and smoke. It's about 1 AM, everyone in the house is asleep but us. So go outside. In friend's front yard is an old slave cabin / tobacco dry house that they used as a shed, and start looking for a place hidden from view of the house and decide beside the shed would be best. We get over there and notice a light is on in the back of the building where the tools are, so we look through the window to see my friend's dad there, which confused us because he was a trucker and had a run that day and wasn't going to wake up till 3 to go in. What made it more odd is that he was rummaging through the tools, and this was a man that kept everything organized. He knew where every tool he needed was. So for some reason Education decided to throw a rock in there to maybe spook his dad and get a laugh. Throw a rock and it hits the wall that he is facing. Immediately stops rummaging and stays completely still, staring into the tool drawer he was going through. After about a minute he resumes going through the tools, so we throw another rock, said hit this time though. His dad grabs the drawer and hurls it at the wall in our direction. We freak out and run back to the house. As soon as we get to the porch, his dad steps out of the house saying, "What the hell are you boys?" and stares at the shed. We look back at the shed and whatever it was that looked like his dad is there on the steps staring at us. It throws its head back and releases the oddest sound I've ever heard, not a bark or howl but like a grumble from a stomach, and runs faster than anyone I've ever seen straight into the woods. Those are my stories. We all still talk but never about those incidents.
This is the tale of 2 boys in the woods. It's not my own tale, but it's a true tale. Some would say, no, not true, that's not how it happened. But it's how the other guy, the one who lived, explained it. They had been visiting a small place in Norway, about 350 people lived there at the time. I lived there. They were city boys, wanted to see the country, the woods, and enjoy a bit of beer and women. At one point a third guy had joined them in their endeavor to enjoy themselves. Later it was told that none of them knew who he was or where he'd come from, just that it felt right to have him there, like they had been missing a piece of a puzzle and that the guy was that piece. Let us call the 2 friends Geir and John, and the third guy who no one remembers even seeing anymore for Seb. John began feeling ill one night. He told Geir that Seb was acting all weird and that he felt sick being near him. Geir laughed it off, but John became more reclusive and apparently refused to have Seb there anymore. Geir and John fought that day, and Geir told John to stay in the cabin and be sick all he wanted, because Geir was heading out to drink. However, while Geir was drinking, John joined him. It was about 27 below Celsius, Amarifags and icy that day. John explained he didn't want to sit at home, that he was sorry for his behavior. When they left, John didn't get his jacket back, claiming he was fine without it. Now this is where it gets a bit tricky. You see, Geir swore John came home with him, that they shared a meal, and that John told Geir that Seb had left. Geir thought nothing of it until he was woken by a knocking at the cabin door. It was the cops telling him that John had been found floating under the ice under the bridge, and that his clothing had been found neatly folded in a crossing by a taxi driver, his shoes on top. Apparently John had been dead for about 12 hours, while Geir knew he had spent time with John within that time rang and told the police so. The police figured he was in shock, denial, that sort of thing. But Geir was adamant. There were 2 plates on the table, and John's bed had been slept in. But when Geir told them about Seb, they became very serious and began asking questions about Seb, how he spoke, how he walked and talked, that sort of thing. Geir willingly explained everything happened to Seb, and was carted off to the mental hospital, charged for murder but apparently too sick to stand trial. If I think back to that night, it snowed heavily. And the taxi driver found the clothing free of snow, neatly folded. If John died that early, there is no way those clothes wouldn't be covered with snow and impossible to see. So, what's your guess? A skinwalker seemingly gliding into their friendship seamlessly? Or just schizophrenia?
Screw Greentext, cause lazy and on phone. I'm bored as hell and decided to go hunting. Woods are not far from my house. It's a decent sized chuck of woods, couple thousand acres, but not really a remote area. There are building new subdivisions and shit around here. Wasn't really going out to do any serious hunting. I just wanted an excuse to get at the house and walk. So I take my rifle and a couple joints, get in my truck and head out. Spend a couple hours or so just walking around aimlessly, toking and spacing out. Decide to try to actually shoot something, so I sit down and lean up against a big oak tree. Just chill and watch a couple squirrels in the trees, waiting for one of them to give me a shot. They don't and eventually just vanish. I get bored quickly, so light up another joint. That's when I hear a ton of noise behind me. Sounds like several people or large animals moving through the woods. I'm totally stoned at this point and paranoid, so I put my joint out and start peeking around the tree to see what's up. See about 6 to 7 teenagers walking in my direction. They stop about 20 meters from my spot and start lighting up cigarettes and cracking open beer cans. Now I'm pissed as heck cause they ruined my peace. Wait about 20 minutes deciding if I should just get up and move to a new spot. Finally decide to mess with them. I have a rifle, remember. I unloaded the magazine into a big tree in front of me. The kids were only 20 meters from me. They noped the crap out of their screaming like a bunch of little girls. Went over to their spot, found 2 unopened cans of beer, drank one, shot the other and went home.
Wasn't in the woods but more so in the middle of nowhere. I've posted it here before. So for context, my dad's side of the family has a lot of Native American blood. Yaqui Indian to be exact, found in northern Mexico and Arizona. My great-great-grandmother passed away a long time ago, but we'll still visit the tribal area to get stuff. Greater than 2007. Was still a kid at the time. Brother was in Oregon with my grandma at the time. Grandpa decides to go visit. We tell my mom and dad and he convinces them to let me come. We keep driving and eventually cross the border. After a while we're in bumfuck nowhere. Not even a gas station for miles. I'm asleep in the back of the van. Boom boom boom. I wake to the sound of gunshots right outside of the van. Grandpa climbs into the driver's seat and starts speeding off before you even closes the door. At this point I'm almost frozen. I look back behind me and see a very faint outline of a humanoid figure illuminated by the tail lights. We eventually make it and my grandpa makes me promise to never tell anyone in my family. He never told me who or what it was. He never left the house without that little Raven Arms 25 ACP pistol, and it probably saved our life.
This happened to me when I was 8 years old. Explore woods with grandma. Stumble upon an old man looking about 70. There's a small path near him. He's collecting some strawberries. We join him for a minute. Only my grandma talks to him since I'm shy AF. We continue on the path. We find a cabin clearly abandoned long time ago. Grandma enters cause I'm too scared. She exits the cabin with a terrified look on her face. She says we need to leave. We get back home. 5 years later when I'm 13 she tells me the old man told her that he lives in the cabin we found, and that in the cabin she saw exactly that man's dead body.
Greater than 14. At summer camp. We're at a private campground by a lake. Dusk. Boat pulls up by our dock. Was too far away, but a guy got out of the boat, and even from the distance I was, 300 to 400 feet, we looked strange. One of the counselors walks up to him. Doesn't even get halfway to the end of the dock before turning around and running. Talks to other counselors. We all get told to get into our vans immediately and go, don't even bother getting your stuff. We pile in and take off. Stop off at the town store. Cops show up. Cops escort us back to campground. Wildlife rangers are there. They're talking with the counselors. Get told we're to rearrange all our tents in a circle around the fire. Greater than 2 ranger trucks are camped by our tents with armed rangers patrolling. The counselors also patrol during the night. Morning, we eat, pack up and leave. Counselors never explained what happened. Some of the kids said some of their clothes were missing but none of their valuables. Weird as shit.
I stayed for a week in my friend's vacation cabin one time. When I'd walk around I'd see dozens of homes but not a single other person. The neighborhood looked completely abandoned but the houses were in surprisingly good condition, so clearly not abandoned. I started to have trouble sleeping, and I wondered if I was in some type of Silent Hill shit, or if I'd clipped into another dimension where people were all still around me but I couldn't see them. By the 4th day of the trip I was so uneasy about it that I considered packing up early and cutting the trip short. That's when I finally saw another human. I asked him where everyone was and he looked at me funny. He explained these were all vacation homes that only get used like 2 weeks out of the year, and most of the owners have paid him to come by once a week and check on the properties, make sure nothing is wrong. I felt pretty dumb. After all, I too was staying in one of the vacation homes, and the only reason I got to use it was because it was the off-season. There was nothing paranormal going on, I was just getting needlessly creeped out by the lack of humans. I've lived in a pinewood forest since 2004 off and on. I own the house I live in. Lived in town from 2009 to 2010, moved back to the house, moved to a city from 2012 to 2016, moved back to the house, did a little traveling for work, short-term stays intermittently afterwards. There's a house in front of me about 2 acres away and another one behind my house about 1 acre. They rarely make noise. There's other houses in the neighborhood but they're further out. I've been hearing weird shit lately, not inexplicable but weird nonetheless. I've also seen my neighbor acting weird at night lately. I smoke cigarettes so I've been outside at random times day and night. There's a train that runs at least a mile away. There's a bridge nearby so I assume it blares its horn when crossing it. Sometimes it blares and the volume makes sense, but other times it's so loud it sounds like it could be right behind the neighbors to the back. It's unreasonably close sounding and it doesn't really make sense why it's always blaring its horn day or night. I've Google mapped a bridge it runs over. Followed the path and it doesn't run near the neighborhood. I've looked up the meaning behind train horns, what they're used for, and the honking doesn't follow the common signals. I attribute it to deer on the tracks but the volume is always inconsistent. I've always been under the impression that train horns aren't volume controlled. The times it sounds off and sound unreasonably close, it makes no sense to me, weirds me out, it's been making me uneasy. One time heard weird fox noises in the woods. I've never noticed how weird this train was before. I jokingly call it the ghost train now. Non-rhythmic car-based noises at night. Just 1 or 2 bass rumbles at random. Coming from what I assume are the other neighbor's house, which are at least 3 to 5 acres away. Not paranormal, but they are white and kinda seem like the type that would fly Confederate flags. Not really the loud bass type of people, I might be wrong. Past night air music playing from the car-based neighbor's direction. Seems normal, then I hear what I guess is them using a karaoke machine. Not weird, but didn't expect it. I couldn't make out what they were saying or singing or anything. Night before the train is going off after train stops blaring. It's not nearby sound, not loud enough to make me question its distance. I hear talking in the woods from the opposite direction as the car-based neighbors. There's a house in that direction about 3 acres away. I've heard him play music late at night. I've never heard him play just talking before, couldn't make out what was being said, but I wasn't going to stay outside long enough to figure out what the talking was about. Owls. I've never heard owls in the woods my entire time in this house. I've always liked owls and was excited the first time I heard it. But it's still weird to me to hear an owl after years of never hearing owls or stories of owls in high school. Graduated 2010 frogs. I live a solid 5 acres from a lake. Seen toads near my house, so it's not foreign to me that I'm hearing frogs or toads. It's the quantity that's weird. It sounds like a shit ton of them going off nearby. Why so many near the house and not at the lake? I don't know much about the traveling pattern of frogs, but I would assume they wouldn't hang it that far away from water. Coyotes howling. A ton of them. They go off during the winter mostly, but every once in a while I'll hear them now. One winter it sounded like 40 of those fuckers. It probably wasn't 40, but they were howling and fighting really loud. Seemed like they're near the lake then, but recently it sounds like they're around the neighbors across the way's house. Never seen them or anything, only ever heard them. Neighbors in the front sit on a small hill. Sometimes if they have their lights on you can see them from my house. It's pretty unusual for them to have their family room light on at night. It doesn't seem like they spend a lot of time in that part of their house. They will however have an upstairs bedroom light on early into the night. The other night I notice a light coming from the middle of their yard. It's small, I've never seen it before. I stand on my porch watching it. It's not moving or anything. It's not sitting close to the ground like a lawn lamp. Seems like it's being held, I really couldn't tell though. Then it goes off. That's weird. I finish my cigarette, go back inside. Later that night I go back out for another cigarette. The same light type to the left of where it was originally. It's closer to the road. I can't keep my eyes off it. Got a sense of uneasiness from it this time. Smoke my cigarette staring at this light, it doesn't go off. Finish cigarette. Go back inside. It's very unlike that neighbor to be in his front yard past dusk. His yard is dark, so the first time I saw that light you thought maybe it was him with a flashlight looking for something. But it just goes off. It doesn't make sense to me that he wouldn't move around in his yard. Whoever it was just standing there randomly turns off light. Later is out there but closer to the street and off to the left at least 2 hours later. Later that same night I hear my dogs barking. One of my dogs barks at anything, the other dog I have rarely barks. I've had rarely barks for 3 years and I could count how many times he's barked. He starts barking, so I'm listening to him go off and I hear steps on my porch. Made me wish I had a gun. I know it's not scary. My intent wasn't to scare but to just recount some of the weird shit I've been noticing in my neck of the woods. If anyone has been living in rural parts of the world, if like to hear your weird stories as well. These things have been making me go WTF or given me unsettling feelings. Never known my neighbors to be the noisy types or have weird habits, so I chalk it up to coronavirus-induced boredom.
SC/out/here, I don't post here often. I've sort of told this story once over there, but I think it fits more here, and I'll go more in depth. Wish I were making this shit up. Be me, around 12. Lived in a woods where my dad managed a camp, New Mexico. Group wants to backpack. Dad offers to guide, something he normally didn't do, and asked if I wanted to go. I knew the trail he was taking them down, so I happily obliged. FFW to trailhead with group. We start, making decent time. Trail is easy mode, but these are city kiddos, so they feel accomplished. Whatever.jpg. Everything is going fine except for this one kid who keeps following me. Just sort of latches onto me from the begging of trip, being a creep in general. He's a known occultist, was playing with some sort of spell or something in the bus OTW to trailhead. Think nothing of it until we're setting up camp. Pretty sight, middle of Aspen Grove in a clearing. Puts his tent directly across from mine. Like uncomfortably close. WTF.jpg. Eat dinner and forget about it? He didn't eat anything. As a matter of fact, he didn't eat all 2 or 3 days we were out there. FFW sleepy time. Wake up around 3 o'clock. Something feels off. Start to sit up to stretch. I can't. There's something on top of me. Start to panic when I realize I can't breathe. I can feel its hand covering my mouth. It begins to push harder into my chest. Feel like I'm being swallowed by the earth as it shoves its knees or whatever down onto my lungs and its hands into my mouth. Desperately trying to scream for help, but obviously nothing is getting out past its hands. Finally accept my fate and beg God to let me die. It lets up after my prayer. Just fucking vanishes. Jump out of my sleeping bag and unzip tent as fast as I can, scared shitless. Run downhill to my dad's bivvy, try and explain what just happened. He writes it off as sleep paralysis or something. I just accept that and go back to bed. Next day we decide to play hide and go seek in a nearby meadow after breakfast. Heavy feeling of dread or fear or something sets on me starting that morning. I'm obviously much more familiar with my surroundings than the rest of the kids. Take advantage of a hollowed out fell pine I knew of on the far side of the meadow. Hiding there for a while when suddenly I begin to hear a choir sing. Thought maybe it was just some animal I was unfamiliar with. It happened again. Sounds like some sort of Hebrew. I'm from a religious family, so know some words. 2 consonant and 1 dissonant notes, clear as fucking day. MFW. I hear this 3 times throughout the day. MFW when no one knew what I was talking about when I asked them about the sounds. Nothing else of note really seemed to happen the rest of the trip other than that specific feeling of being followed. It stays after they leave and I'm back home. Gets worse and worse. Eventually I begin to realize it's following me, taking advantage of my weakest moments. I begin to feel its call more and more, especially at night. It's almost as if its presence became stronger then. Would tell me to kill myself, do unspeakable acts of horror to others. I'd kick out of bed in a cold sweat and begin reciting verses and prayers. Most of the time that was enough to make it subside. FFW months of living like this. I continued to hike and do cool shit innawoods throughout this time. I was still a fucking 12-year-old. Could always tell where it was in proximity to me, especially when I was alone. Sometimes it'd get too close for comfort if I wandered out too far away from other people and I'd panic and sprint back home. Shooting near my house in a ravine. Plinking pots and pans with my Ruger 10-20 seconds, would do it all the time. Suddenly I felt like something was even more wrong than usual. Same feeling of dread, but it almost felt like a sort of bloodlust was in the air. Rifle is still pointed down range. My rifle started moving on its own. I was willfully trying to keep it pointed away from myself, but it wouldn't stop rotating. Nearly got turned around fucking 90 degrees before I got control of it again. I have still to this day never removed a mag and cleared a gun that fast in my life. This sort of bloodlust would come over me at vulnerable times throughout the next couple of years. My parents both worked, so I'd be alone in the house quite frequently. Sometimes I'd be sitting in my room playing Xbox and suddenly find myself being drawn to the guns. Would take all the guns and put them in the corner of my parents' room, then go bang my head on the kitchen counter or sit in the living room praying. FFW 2 years. We moved to Co, where my dad began to manage another camp. Were there for maybe a week when I decided to go see this meadow I had heard of up the mountain from the camp. Set up day pack with water, food, extra socks, etc. Nice hike, no problems. Reached a clearing in an aspen grove. Felt like I took my pack off. Confused, I checked, and it was still on with water intact. Then I realized it. The presence was gone. I couldn't feel where it was anymore. I was free. Never felt or heard from it again. That's it? So weird. Started and ended in almost perfectly circular clearings in aspen groves. Because of this I always avoid camping in them now. Anyone who's been /out/ for long enough has seen some shit, I guarantee you.
First, let me say this, I don't get scared easily. I've been in the Sierras all my life, and I know every inch of the eastern half like the back of my hand. I'm always wandering around miles away from any trails on my own, and I'm always fine. This is the second time I've experienced something bone-chilling enough to turn me off from hiking for weeks afterwards. Be me, 19, living in the eastern Sierra Nevada. Friday the 13th and harvest moon coming up. Think, hey, what if I went for a hike out on a nearby trail and stay out and watch the moon? Start hiking around 4, wanted to have time to get to a nice spot before the sun went down around 7:40. Everything was going well at first, just a normal, calming hike up some solid altitude gain. After about an hour I enter a brightly lit tunnel of aspen trees. It was absolutely beautiful with the sunlight filtering through the leaves, and it smelled like heaven. This is the part where it gets weird. Directly after this aspen tunnel abruptly ends, you enter a grove of pine trees where it's very dark for 5 p.m. I had trouble making out the path at times, and the trees were almost always about 15 to 20 feet away from each other, so light should be able to shine through very easily. I stop and look around and notice an interesting pair of trees growing 3 to 4 feet apart a couple yards off the trail. Would make for a cool picture, so I pull out my phone and load up my camera. As I raise my foot to get closer to the trees, a voice in my head says, "Don't leave the trail. Once you spend enough time in the woods by yourself, you learn to obey voices in your head because they usually know things you may not be aware of." So I put my phone away and walk as fast as I can out of that grove, since the voice was also told me not to run. Like the idiot I am, I continue with my planned hike until I find an open spot with a beautiful view of the sunset a bit off the trail. Interestingly enough, the voice guided me to that spot off the trail. Spend about an hour in the one spot, taking pictures, and laying on the ground. None of the horrible shit I was feeling earlier was hitting me. Around 7:10 the voice comes back saying I need to get back, so I pack up my things in my backpack and start working my way back to the trail. Keep on repeating to myself for some reason that I need to get out of the forest before the moon comes out. The forest itself only takes up about half of the trail. The first half is climbing up a mountainside covered in low brush. Get back on the trail and start speed walking through it, always aware of the quickly disappearing light of the sun to my left. I notice that everything has gone dead quiet, so I stop and listen to see if anything is still lively. A single caw from a crow is the only thing I hear, which sets me entirely on edge. When I end back up in the dark grove I mentioned earlier, my legs instantly tense up to sprint through the area, but I just knew that even though I had to get out of the forest before the moon came out, I could not run. The entire time walking back my body is ready to rip apart from stress, and I just had these weird impressions in my head guiding me. The tension instantly went away when I made it out of the forest, but I was still so spooked by it I haven't gone hiking since. Nothing super concrete, but it was one of my worst experiences up here, and I've come face to face with a family of brown bears and been stalked by a mountain lion, wendigo. Anyway, that's my story, lads.
I had something similar happen a few years ago. Me, 20, on a vacation with my parents and brother. We stopped by a river on a wooded area a few miles from the town we were staying in. We planned to spend the day there. There were a couple of other families by the river and the water was calm and clear. I thought it would be a nice opportunity to take some pics in the woods. Took my camera and told my family in which direction I would go just in case. I started walking into the woods. It started as an easy trek but soon became harder. The woods were so thick at one point that it was actually quite dark. I knew there weren't any dangerous animals in the area, and it is regarded as quite a safe and tourist-friendly region, with low crime and shit, so I wasn't afraid of running into anything or anyone dangerous. I kept walking for like half an hour, taking pics at some places where the sun managed to break through the treetops. It was kind of beautiful, looked like Fangorn from The Lord of the Rings. Then I found this small clearing. I thought it would be a great spot for some rest. As soon as I placed a foot into this clearing I felt something was off. I stopped completely and could feel the hairs at the back of my neck standing up. I started sweating. There was nothing there, but I was terrified. My whole body tensed up and I felt as if my own brain was yelling at me to get the hell out of there. So I started walking backwards, and after a few meters turned around to leave for good. I felt like there was something watching me from the clearing, and somehow I knew I should not turn around nor run. Like if whatever that was shouldn't realize I knew it was there. I just walked calmly, taking pictures from time to time, and after a good 20 minutes the feeling stopped and I ran the fuck away from there as fast as I could, ended up on a dirt road and followed it. I eventually found the river and my family, never told them.
Be security guard. Get an alarm for a haunted house. Guards have been locked in the house, and it's almost innawoods, said to be haunted by an old man. Not supposed to go alone, but backup is locking up banks and will take too long. You have to cross some train tracks near a gate, then walk through the woods to get there. It's a motion alarm from the basement like always. Pull up on site, start walking through the tall grass. 6. The house has no front porch, so you have to go in through the back. As I approach the house there is a thumping sound and something running off into the woods. The house's back entrance is covered in really old spider webs, old fuel bills laying around. I enter the house and disarm the alarm. It looks like people live here but don't. The beds are made, there is furniture. It's like visiting your grandma's house who's been dead for a month. It's clean but old. There are older style things like radios, TVs, and books. Kind of cluttered. I introduced myself just in case to be polite. I can't find the basement door, so I wander around the house. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a bathroom, and 2 living rooms. Big old green chair I expected somebody to appear in, but nothing. The other room had a bunch of stuffed animals on the couch facing the TV. Finally go into the basement. It's one of those where you feel exposed walking down, like something will grab your ankles. The atmosphere of the basement is different, abandoned, and dilapidated. There is a storage room that has 2 dolls. I almost expected them to move. One of them looked familiar, if you will. I tried closing the door to the doll room, but the door became stuck, so I left it. Right behind me were weird stains on the concrete, maybe jam or blood. Whatever, I'm out of here. Try to arm the system, but the panel says fault kitchen door. I must have closed it incorrectly. Everything is as I left it, so bypass it and arm it. As I leave the back screen door I entered from rattles loudly as I walk away for no reason.
Interesting op. I too know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to the voice in your head in the wilderness. It's a powerful experience being alone, off trail, in virgin forest. I also have extensive experience in the Eastern Sierra. I'll repost an old story of mine. Erase a short green text. In Sierra Nevada. At about 11,000 feet or so. Decide to hike off trail just because I'm familiar with the area and want to see the view from atop a nearby ridge. Hike in about an hour or so. Up high, the trees are all ancient, gnarled foxtail pines. Some are thousands of years old. Chewing gum. At moments get these weird foreboding thoughts. No one knows where you are right now. You could just fall into the earth. There may be things out here that we don't know about that can just grab your ass. Sit down in little clearing and eat an MRE. Be little asshole and decide to stick the gum in a crack of one of these trees. Slight buzzing starts. Grows louder. Louder still. Begin shitting a fucking brick. The buzzing is increasing in intensity so much that it feels like my body is shaking. Grows stronger still. Look around me. Realize I'm inside of a ring of 5 or 6 ancient gnarled trees, or maybe one huge clonal tree. The buzzing is so intense now it fills me with dread. Eyes well up with tears. Sprint all the way down that ridge until I'm back on the trail. Never been so scared in my life. It's truly a weird feeling when you have a gun on you, but feel like it doesn't even matter, like it's useless. Part of me now feels like ancient trees are some sort of entity or something, like they are all linked through their roots and have developed a type of consciousness or some shit. The whole time I was running down the ridge my mind was screaming, "You pissed off the fucking trees." That voice has saved my life before. Always listen to your intuition.
Hi op. Got this hunting story. It is pretty creepy. Boar hunting innawoods with a bro. It starts getting dark. Set up camp, call it a night. Later in the night. Woken up by some rustling outside the tent. Creep out of the tent, hit with a sudden powerful stench. It's coming from every direction. Grab my loaded nugget, affix bayonet, tromp forth with nose plugged. Feel my feet starting to sink into the ground deeper with each step. I think I'm getting into some marshes. Suddenly hear a voice behind me. This is my swamp boy, and those boars are mine too. I don't even have time to turn around before I'm forced onto a tree and my pants are ripped clean off. You've overstepped your boundaries, now it's time for some Shreksual punishment. Feel a sharp pain in my ass, faint almost immediately from pain.
My dad's story, not mine. Dad's friend has cabin in the woods. Lets my dad use it whenever. Dad goes out there for hunting throughout the year. Usually heads out from the cabin at 4 a.m. to travel to his hunting spot. Goes up to cabin Friday night. 4 a.m. Saturday hikes to his spot. Walking through a wooded area. Feels like he's being watched. Hears something. Shines flashlight. It's a guy in cameo but no rifle or bow and arrow. Thanks for finding me, anons dad, I got lost in the woods. Dad tells him to come out and walk in front of him. Leads him back to one of the main trails, then heads back but make sure he's not following him. Guy had a sidearm and knife only and it was deer season. Dad goes back to cabin, gets in his truck and takes off.
Out camping by myself. Not a super popular area but not deserted either. Hike and set up camp. Don't see anyone else. Hike some more after setting up tent. Sun will set soon. Head back. Can see my tent in the distance. There's a guy going through my stuff. Just hide behind a tree and watch him. In a few minutes he heads off without taking anything. Wait a few more minutes. Walk back. Quickly pack my gear. Fuck it, I'm out of here. Walk in the dark back to my car.
Be me. Live 5 miles from a wildlife refuge. Ride my bike to said refuge every day. It's raining this time. No biggie. Get to the refuge and do the usual. Hike/bike down every trail. Notice the wind is getting stronger. Not bothered. Continue frolicking. Wind is howling now. Stop and watch the trees. They're swaying so much it's unbelievable. Watmuori.jpg. I'm almost done with my circuit. No sense in stopping now. On my way to a public boat landing. On this road there's marsh on one side and woods on the other. Then I see it. There is a trail through the woods that I've never seen. I've been here a million times and have never noticed it. It opens onto the roadside like an ominous maw. At this point the wind is deafening. It's raining so hard that I can't see down the road. Stash the bike and go in a woods. Round the first bend. The howling wind sounds distant. Very little of the rain is filtering through the branches overhead. Round the next bend. Find the remains of an old house. It had collapsed a long time ago. The wooden parts had long since rotted away. The only thing left was the twisted, crumbling brick foundation and the toppled chimney. I walk around these ruins instead of through them. The wind is still howling beyond the trees. But it stopped raining apparently. Press on. Round another bend. Snap. Something very large and very fast bolts through the trees and out of view. Oh shit fuck.jpg. But there's another one. Bounding away from me. I notice the tail and the shape. It's a deer. A third deer takes off in my direction. It's a baby deer. Little guy scattered like his mom and dad without knowing what he was fleeing from. He sees me. He skitters to a halt and changes direction. No more deers. Neat. Press on some more. Before rounding the next bend. Snap. Hear some more movement. I hunch down and get still. Then I hear it. Growling. It was definitely growling and it was definitely coming from around the next bend. Hey wait, what happened to the wind? More growling. Feel my hair stand up on end. The rush of fear hits my stomach. Slowly and quietly, I pick up a big stick. The fuck are you going to do with a big stick? Good point. Pick up another stick. I now have 2 sticks. This plan is foolproof. I start walking backwards. Slowly. Eventually get back to my bike. Leave the refuge. The wind is stronger than ever now. The rain is back. It's raining so hard that I can only see a few feet in front of me. Several trees were laying across the road on my way back. The wind is blowing against me. It's strong enough that I can't pedal forward. I see headlights. My dad had loaded my brother into the SUV and came looking for me. Apparently I left the house when the storm was just a storm. It developed into a high-level hurricane while I was in the refuge. Get home and dry off without further incident. Whenever I go in innawoods I'm extra vigilant. Go back to that spot days later. The trail is gone. It's just fucking gone. Even as an adult I go back from time to time and look for that trail. It's always gone. That my story, brothers.
Hit J School. My friend Levi and I would go out to the forest. One of our parents would drop us off then pick us up a few hours later. We found a cool spot off the main trail. Out at our spot, Levi ducks down in the bushes. I instinctively follow suit. Notice 2 guys on the ridgeline carrying something. Oh shit, seems like a lifeless body. They toss it down the hill and it rolls to the trees/bushes near us. Levi decides to check it out. He creeps slowly towards it. Then fucking bolts back. It's a body, I saw the nostrils. We run back to the park entrance. Notice a bunch of fire trucks there. Too scared to say anything. Wait for my mom to pick us up. She gets there. We tell her what we saw. Anon, it was just a dummy. The firemen are having a search and rescue exercise. Fucking Levi.
Not very spooky. 19 yo. Rifle season deer hunting alone. Park on logging road at the very entrance so my truck doesn't get stuck. Start walking into the woods. See a deer laying on its side like it's dead. Poke it with my rifle in the butt to make sure it's not sleeping. Doesn't move, no blood anywhere near it or on it. Must have died. Keep walking into woods. Come back 4 hours later. Deer is gone. Either it was playing possum or something took the entire deer.
Friend and I are exploring woods. Get lost. We wander for what felt like an eternity. My friend remains calm but I start to think I am going to die in this woods. I finally feel a sense of relief as we stumble on cabin-looking house. See man and woman in front of building. Woman is on the porch in a rocking chair knitting. Man is in front of her chopping wood on a stump. I am so overjoyed to see an adult. I quickly approach. Man lowers his axe. Holding back tears, I explain that my friend and I are lost. Man smiles. The woman, who is still sitting in the chair watching, begins to laugh. Still struggling not to burst into tears, I look back at my friend. While I was walking towards the house, my friend unknowingly stayed back near the tree line. I look at the man and begin to repeat the predicament. Man lets out a deafening howl of laughter. This only causes the woman laughter to grow louder as well. I begin to slowly walk backwards towards my friend and eventually turn and sprint back into the woods. My friend follows suit and we run through back deeper into the woods. We run for as long as we can but have to slow down to avoid hurting ourselves on fallen branches. Eventually make it to a recognizable landmark and are able to get back to where we entered the woods. Can still hear the laughter of those two in my head to this day.
B13. Live near 5 acres of woods, which isn't all that much at all. My nephew, only 4 years younger than me, and I in a woods. We decide to follow a little creek. We walk for what seems to be an hour next to beautiful rocks, water, trees, and cliffs. Like something out of Lord of the Rings. Come to tree line. Open field full of wild flowers. Clearly we are off the 5 acres, but wow, what a gorgeous place we've found. In the middle of this huge open field, down a little hill is what I can only describe as a mini forest. A circle of trees, maybe the size of a house, in the middle of this field. Nephew and I go to see it. Suddenly a woman is with us, picking flowers. Well, hi there. We back up from her. I smile. She looks mid-50s, wearing a white blouse and capris, like a nice, normal woman. But something feels so off. She asks, are y'all playing in the tree house? Tree house? Is that not your tree house in there? Points to trees in middle of field. No. You should go see it. It's pretty neat. I'm about to go look like a dumbass, but my nephew is like, no, we are going home. Woman seems to get made. Go look. We leave and she starts cursing under her breath, saying stuff like little brats and I bet you fuck each other, huh? Essentially run home without talking. To this day my nephew, now 24, doesn't like talking about what he calls the witch.
Have posted before. I was a kid when this happened, so I admit I possibly misremembered, or was tired and eyes playing tricks on me. It was nighttime, still blue in the sky, about 9 p.m. in summer. Looking out from my bedroom window on the second floor, we lived rural, no neighbors, no back fence. I was looking at the trees in the backyard, wind moving the branches. Beyond the yard was forest, stretched back for miles. I loved it during the day, but at night the mood changed. So this one night, out of the corner of my eye I see movement at ground level to my right. Happened too quick, I couldn't make anything out. Thought it had gone as quick as I saw it. Kept eyes peeled. And then saw a figure about 6 foot tall. Featureless, but I suppose human shape. Just nothing definable. It moved, glided at a real slow speed across the backyard. Maybe about 150 meters away. I'm not sure if it was touching the ground. I think was hovering about a foot above it, but I can't be sure of that. White/gray color. Looked like a cloud, or gas. Moved at the same speed a person would if walking. And didn't seem to have any real purpose. Got the impression it was walking nowhere in particular, because it would veer a little in one and then another direction. Didn't seem aware of me at all. Saw it for maybe 30 seconds all up before it disappeared out of view behind a shed. And past that SHD was just endless trees. I kept watching, but it didn't appear again. My 10-year-old brain went crazy trying to figure it out. Felt chilling. Like it was something unfriendly that I shouldn't be seeing. It wouldn't want me to know it was there. I instantly thought ghost. Now I just don't know. I tell myself swamp gas, ball lightning. Except these are things I've never encountered. Again, completely baffled by it.
My dad has a few interesting stories about the woods. He was an avid outdoorsman, always in the woods hunting, offloading, etc. Back in the late 70s. Him and his friends are offloading in his Jeep one night up in the mountains. They sense something off about the woods around them, so they stop. Notice extremely strong winds moving the trees in a whirling motion. They see lights in the distance, remote area they've been to a bunch of times beforehand. They decide to walk over and check it out. They came upon what looked to be a group of cabins from the 1920s to 1930s. Pristine trucks from that time era in front of the cabins. Lanterns hanging outside of each cabin were recently lit. They knock on one of the doors, no response, so they go into the cabin, door is unlocked. Cabins look brand new inside but no recent technology inside, they also look like they've been recently inhabited but nobody around. They leave the area and go home for the night. Next day they read the newspaper and one of the headlines is about strange lights in the sky being seen over the mountain they were on. They go back up that night. Can't find the cabins. He still says it was one of the strangest things he's ever experienced in his life.
Out camping. There's like a dozen people there. I put my tent alone off like 150 feet from the nearest tent. Go hiking. Come back and cook something. Drink with some of the other campers. Head to my tent at 9 p.m. to sleep. Still all alone with no other tents nearby. Wake up at 11 p.m. Need to piss. Open tent. There's another tent 10 feet from mine. Must have straggled in late. Piss. Go back to my tent. Hear moaning in the other tent. Gets louder. You okay, buddy? No reply. Hear screaming that sounds muffled and low like someone screaming with their mouth covered by a sleep bag. Hey, are you okay in there? Still no reply. Decide to shake the tent. Hello? Go to unzip it. Hear a growl and rustling in the tent. Fuck it. Go back and try to sleep. Still hear strange sounds from the tent until I doze off. Wake up the next morning. Tent is gone. Ask the other campers but no one else saw another tent by me or someone new. Still wish I opened that tent.
First time solo camping, entry-level national park. Pick related, not exact area but similar features. Find a spot on the edge of the map far from any campgrounds. Drive a couple miles off a side road, park, and hike out another 15 minutes, not far but enough for total solitude. Camp is set, surrounded by trees, enjoy the evening. No booze or anything, only brought water and juice for an overnight cause lol nature cleans. Kinda bored, decide to call it a night early. Toss and turn for a couple hours, eventually start drifting into very light sleep. Suddenly wake from half sleep, hear something walking around in the twigs and leaves maybe 30 to 40 feet away. Adrenaline cools down as I remember I'm in the woods, want to peek but decide to leave it be. Drift back to sleep listening to the sounds of nature. Wake again an unknown time later, footsteps much closer now, maybe 10 feet from the tent. No wolves or bears in the Reagan but fuck I should have at least brought a weapon. Listening very closely as it slowly paces around, must be 20 minutes before I inevitably doze off again. Suddenly awake again. Oh fuck it's right next to the tent. It slowly and deliberately pushes into the tent, down until it's touching my head. Literally paralyzed by fear, cannot scream, cannot think, did not prepare for this. Feel like I'm blacking out, whole body is vibrating. Whoosh, suddenly everything is over, lay there a few moments longer until I realize I hear and feel nothing. Finally get the nerve to sit up and peek outside, fucking nothing. Completely shook, but it must be 2 a.m. now and I'm exhausted, nothing to do but sleep. Make it through the night, wake up and have a beautiful morning before I pack up and leave. Probably just sleep paralysis in an unfamiliar setting, I've had it before and the full body vibrating buzzing sensation was very similar. Fantastic experience otherwise, it's been years but I still want to do it again, despite all the innawoods stories I've read since then.
Here's something that happened to me a couple of years ago and it's probably the scariest in this thread because it's actually real. Be biology guy. Be Mexican. Doing field research in a forested area around some mountains by myself. Setting up some cameras and taking samples, all going smoothly. The woods are nice and warm. Hear voices. They get closer, sounds like a group of around 5 people. I see them in a small clearing about 30 meters away from me. I'll go say hi, maybe they are lost or something. Hold up. .jpg. Why are they all holding assault rifles and why are they carrying some dude who could not really get up? Oh fuck.exe. Hide under some bushes, could still sort of see the group of people. They began laughing and hitting the dude and asking him shit I couldn't make out. Try to stay calm, take out my phone and think about calling the cops. Are you retarded? Rar. Decide to turn off phone instead and stay as still as possible. After I finish fumbling with my phone I slowly look in the direction of the armed people. One of them had a machete. Heart was going to explode, whole body trembling with fear. Machete guy begins hacking at victim. The agony screams, I can still remember them. Decide to close my eyes and wait for silence. The armed men seem to disappear all of a sudden. After like a half hour everything seems quiet. Look into clearing, they simply left the pieces of some man laying around. Too scared to move still. Sun is going down. Gotta man up. Fuck it, ran for like an hour straight to the place I left my car, left a bunch of equipment in those mountains, never returned. Fuck this country.
Shit's fucked, Anon. My dad does some work out in AZ sometimes, near White Sands. He likes hiking around the desert in his off time. Here's his story. Go hiking to a trail he's been to several times before. Pulls up on the trailhead. This is a desert trail, mind you, so the trailhead is more like a parking lot next desert and the road. There's a couple of guys and a girl next to a few pickups. They all have guns. Guys have ARs and shotguns, woman has a revolver. Just shooting off into the desert. Dad likes guns, so talks to them for a minute before heading out to the trail. Halfway back, he sees a white something draped over a boulder off the trail. Climbs over rocks and scree to get to it. It's a white plain t-shirt. It has a multitude of holes in the chest and arms. Covered in splashes of blood. And I mean riddled with holes. A dozen or so rifle holes across the upper chest and side. Greater than 2 shotgun-shaped holes torn in the front, chest, and stomach. Dried blood, not fresh. Da thinks about calling the police, but decides against it at the time. Spotty desert service. Worried the gang at the trailhead might have done it, and may try to silence him. Hikes back to his car, luckily goon squad had fucked off. After he got back to town he called the cops and they basically told him to not worry about it. Between cartels, gangs and the border patrol there are hundreds of bodies and remains in the desert that are never recovered.
Greater than 1998. Greater than 10-year-old me sleeping in day bed in cabin. Parents in another cabin, I'm staying in cabin with cousin, 13. Deep in a woods, cabin has no power/running water. Just fireplace and candles. Apparently cousin and my mom saw some weird animal. I didn't see shit. Comfy sleeping. Huge slap on the wall behind me shakes my bed. Wake up, cousin's eyes wide open and he's dead still sitting up in bed. Cousin puts out the candle we were using for light. There's a little window and he looks outside. Freaks out and jumps back into his bed. Whatever, go back to sleep. Wake up and see this gaunt long arm that's hand looks more like a chimpanzee hand, slowly move up my bed from under it. Can't move body. Puckeranus.zip. Hand starts choking me. Pulls me under bed. I managed to give out a weak yelp and cousin helps me out of under the bed. He's freaking out and so am I. Too scared to go to parents' cabin. We stay up for the rest of the night. Asked him later what he saw. Said he saw a wolf stand up on 2 legs and smile at him. Asked him if it looked like a werewolf. He said it just looked like a regular wolf that suddenly started to move like a cartoon and was very expressive. Would have passed it off as a waking dream if not for the fact he said he saw a hand pull me under the bed and whatever skinwalker wolf thing he saw outside.
Sure. Used to camp with Boy Scouts everywhere in the country. Set up camp few steps close to a big beautiful lagoon, pick. Scouts do guard shifts every 2 hours. Get 2 AM to 4 AM guard turn with other cunt. Cunt won't get up so I just do it, also it gives me time to smoke a little. Doing rounds around, checking no animals come close to eating the trash. Around 3 AM hear shouting really close, like really close around. I figure a kid fell or get lost going to pee. Check around, giving several laps to the area, but I can't see anything. I was seasoned camper, so I don't get startled very easily, really familiar with woods and vegetation by that point, so I enjoyed the peace. There is almost a full moon, so I can clearly see around, so it's odd not seeing anyone if they are outside. Shouting comes and goes for around 20 minutes. Start walking to a clearing, cause I think the source comes from there. As closer I get, the shouting feels more distant, but I can discern it's from a female. Oh shit, gif, someone might be getting raped. I pick up the pace, but the faster I go it gets farther from the shouting. I came to full view in the clearing and I realize I can't hear a thing now. No bugs, no wind, no rustling of branches, as if the sound switch of the forest is off suddenly. This is a fairly windy area, so it's extremely odd. Suddenly get a deep feeling of dread and anticipation and hear a small scream from several sides in succession. I nope the fuck out, jogging as fast as I can without losing my position. Getting close, the area feels normal and loud again, and the screaming has stopped. Talking to a ranger after hours reporting a maybe missing person, he tells me there are no other visitors since it's low season and almost no one camps since it's a fairly long trail to get to. He tells me it's a common tale to hear La Llorona in those areas since there is a body of water nearby. La Llorona, it's usually closer when you hear her from a distance, so I think I might been closer to some sort of entity. Anyway, I shit bricks for the next 2 nights, but something like that has never happened again.
Not the woods, but a cave so close enough. There's a good amount of caves around my university. One of my friends, Mike, is really into it. I wouldn't call him a pro, but he's pretty close. Mike invites me and the rest of our friends to go caving. Simple stuff, nothing that you need rope or gear other than a flashlight. Tour the cave. Pretty neat. Wants to show us a cool chamber. Have to go through a squeeze. Think of it as a wormhole. Small hole barely able to fit a person in, about 30 feet long. You need to get on your stomach or back and slowly crawl through. We go through the squeeze one by one. Enter this huge pristine chamber. Okay, time to go back. We all go through the squeeze back where we came from. I'm second to last with Mike bringing up the rear. I get in and slowly crawl down the squeeze. Look back. No Mike. Mike, are you okay? Silence. Mike. Mike head dives into the squeeze. What the fuck, Mike? There's something behind me, hurry the fuck up. Panic. He's screaming, I'm screaming, everyone is screaming. He's shoving my feet forward, so I hurry up and I'm shoving the person in front of me. Finally get out. Mike has his head and arms out of the hole. It's got my legs. Grab Mike's arms and try to drag him out. He starts laughing. Hanging halfway out of the hole, and he's just laying there laughing for a solid 2 minutes straight. Got you guys good. Suddenly he drags himself out of the squeeze in a split second. I saw something at the other entrance of the squeeze. Haha, very funny Mike, that's enough pranks for tonight. I'm not joking, let's get out of here. He starts heading back to the entrance. Everyone follows. I decide to shine my light into the squeeze. Thought I saw fingers all the way at the entrance/exit that recoiled in the light. Fuck this noise. Go catch up with the rest of the group.
Age 10. Post-Soviet Russia, 1992. Tomsk Oblast, middle of fucking nowhere, maybe 2 hours from Tomsk the city. Family has small farm. Was once for glory of Russia, now for glory of paying fucking taxes. Something chewed through the sheep's fence and sheep are now wandering the woods and fields. Have to gather them, father tells me, follow the creek, as long as you see the creek you can find your way back. Father goes one way, I go the other, whole family wandering through woods. I see a sheep, call to it. Sheep are fucking stupid, so it does nothing. Sheep runs as I get close. Chase the sheep to a clearing. One by one every member of my family comes out of the leaves. We were all chasing the same specific sheep, it is the only one with fucked up eyeball from dog bite. The same sheep all led us from different places to the same place. We never found that sheep, nor any sheep. The farm was ruined and my family went bankrupt. Such is life in Russia. I apologize for any bad English.
I lived in an old New England town growing up. There was an old 1700s family cemetery plot deep in the woods behind my childhood home. An old map of the town describes the area as Hell's County. As cheesy as that sounds, supposedly there were satanic groups and even witch hangings in the area around the time of the town's founding. The plot was stumbled upon by my brother and I when we were exploring the vast wetlands and forest behind the neighborhood. Funny thing is when we would take others to go see it, there were problems. First attempt, our cousins were over and we wanted to show them. They were very interested and we started off into the forest. Shortly after we got close to the site, our whole group was attacked by mud wasps. My cousins never stepped foot in the plot. The second attempt, a month later, we were swarmed by bugs. The cloud of bugs was so dense they made it even hard to see. However, a year or two later, by myself in the woods, I had no issue crossing through. Strange place.
2004. I was heading up to Glasgow in the December. As I got to Carlisle, it came over the radio that there was an overturned truck blocking the motorway. So I headed back to go a different route, along the border next to the biggest forest in the UK, Kielder National Park. The weather was foul, windy, teeming with rain, and pitch black. My fuel was running low. It's 248 square miles of forest. I drove another 20 miles through the forest, becoming pretty worried now. No mobile phone signal. Turned the corner, I caught a glimpse of a man and a young girl. The nearest town is at least 20 miles in either direction. I didn't know what to think. A guy and a kid in this weather in the middle of the forest. Mind racing but needed directions. I stopped the car and opened the window. I noticed he was wearing a flannel shirt and the little girl a summer dress. With a gulp in my throat, I said, "Can you tell me the way out of here to a petrol station, please?" He just looked at me, not saying a word, and then pointed eastwards. I thanked him and sped off. I was almost sure I was going to look in the rear view mirror and see them sitting in the back seat. Thank God nothing happened. I drove as fast as I could in those conditions to find the town of Newcastleton, a small village in the borders with a fuel station. The pump attendant told me the motorway had been reopened ahead of schedule.
Grad school. We can get 2 classes worth of credits if we do a 2-week volunteer service mission in Costa Rica. Beam me the fuck up, Slappy. Going down to help a poor village build some infrastructure. Get there. It's June. Hot and humid as fuck. All of my classmates are staying in one big brick hut. We're all given mosquito nets. Told it's very important to set up the net correctly on our beds. It goes under our mattress and hooks up above our bed in a teardrop design, and to stay in it after dark. Sunsets. I guess I'll get in the mosquito net, but it can't be that bad, right? All the lights are turned off. Fair amount of mosquitoes but not that bad. Looks like the walls and ceilings are moving. Take out my cell phone and shine it against the wall. Legs in every nook and cranny of the wall. Small legs, big legs, furry legs. See crab-shaped things on the ceiling. Oh my God, we're surrounded by spiders. Try to stay calm. Suddenly something is right by my face. Takes a second for my eyes to adjust. Don't need the light to realize it's a dinner plate-sized spider on the other side of the mosquito net, like 2 inches from me. Spaz out and hit the net so it knocks it off. Spend the night absolutely terrified. Doesn't get better as the days pass, but you realize the spiders leave you alone. Then one day, the fat fuck of the class runs by moving faster than an Olympic sprinter. Yells out, "Spider chasing me." Fuck off, spiders don't chase people. Notice the leaves are rustling in a straight line towards us. Finally see it? A fuck huge spider is charging at us. Run the fuck away. No wonder they gave us so many credits for just 2 weeks.
Me and friends go camping out in Carson National Forest in New Mexico. Keep in mind, it's nowhere near the Mexican border. Set up camp in clearing. Shrink, hike, and chill. That night, feel like we're being watched. They my friends. They feel it too. Can smell something like rancid bow but can't pinpoint it. Check the area. It's all clear. Probably just our imagination. Go to sleep. Morning. Get woken up by Buddy shaking my tent. Anon, a lot of our stuff is gone. Get out of tent. Like everyone's packs and our food is gone. Notice tracks leading to the tree lean. We follow them. They end at a boulder. Check around the boulder to see if the tracks continue. Nothing. Step on top of where the tracks end. Hear wood creaking. Huh? Get down and examine the area. It's a fucking wooden door on the ground. About 3 feet by 2 feet. Lift it open. Pitch black tunnel. Okay, that's enough. We pack up what's left and leave. No idea how long the tunnel ran, but it couldn't have been easy to dig. It must have been a multi-person effort over some time.
House backs up against the woods. There's one tree about 200 feet from the back of my house that has branches so dense you can't see the trunk. No issues for years. Nighttime about a year ago. Wake up at 1 a.m. to the dog barking. He's at the back patio door staring at and barking directly at the tree. Can hear the neighbor's dog barking as well. Grab flashlight and go outside. Shine it into the tree. Can't see anything. Maybe a bird. Put the dog in my room so he can calm down and sleep. Wake up again to dog barking. He's barking at my bedroom window. Oh shit. Grab the shotgun. Look at security cameras. Nothing, but it doesn't have an angle on my bedroom window. Turn on the outside lights. Take a minute to work up my courage. Open the front door. Check and clear. Check outside my bedroom window. Don't see anything. Go back in. Dog is calm now. Go to sleep.
Greater than 2016. Out in the woods near our university. With my friend. Me and her were just walking around having a smoke until we go back to uni again. We go past the small river that basically cuts off the line between campus forest and public forest. The public forest has some random houses here and there every quarter mile or so and some gravel/dirt roads connecting them. It was near the end of a sunset, so it was a beautiful orange and purple sky. Never was too good at finding my way back in the dark, so I said we should turn back. She agreed, but when we turned backwards to go the way we came, there was a guy in full camo nylon style suit and boots. They had a crossbow as well. I assumed they were a hunter, but the time of day made me think maybe he was practicing. As we're walking back, we get a few feet away from him and I say howdy. Just to have him just smile, and that's it. Can still remember his lips with blackened spots as if he bit his lip often. As we kept walking back to the river in a faster pace because, well, he was generally creepy. I turn my head back to see him close by still, almost at the same distance. On campus you can't have guns or crossbows or anything of that sort, so we assumed he wouldn't follow us any further. Once we get past the river again and we're about a quarter mile away from our dorms. I still see him nearby from across the river. It was getting quite dark now, just a tingle of purple left in the sky. He waves at us and shouts, "See you again." We book it back to the dorms and chill out for the night. We never went back over the river again. Probably wasn't that creepy, but it's pretty spooky he followed us.
Probably 16. Was out in the woods deer hunting with my dad, in New Hampshire. On our way out, when we packed up blind, it was pretty much dark out. We were pretty far out, so used a compass to navigate out. We weren't familiar with the area we were in, so we took a bearing when we came in. We get about halfway back when we notice an extremely bright orange light probably 100 feet from us. Orb-shaped, probably like 3 or 4 feet tall. It's way brighter than any military surplus flashlight. It wasn't moving at all, it stayed perfectly still. We both looked at each other and made sure we were both seeing it, and proceeded to get the fuck out of there. Keep in mind that we were deep in the woods in New Hampshire in November, nobody would be camping. We drove down the road for miles to see if there were any cars parked at any of the trailheads around here. There were none. Just thinking about it gets me freaked out. I can't think of any plausible explanations.
Lived in northern Indiana in bumfuck Nowhereville. Half of it is forest and the other half is farm fields. Driving with a few of my high school friends, summer after junior year. Late night, on forested roads. Come around a bend. Total daylight out of nowhere. We stop and just look out the windows confused as hell. Turn around and spend the rest of the night with the lights on in my friend's house. Another one. As is always, driving with friends. Just fresh out of high school. Go out into the forested areas as usual. My friend's gotten a bit braver and takes his shitbox down gravel paths and dirt roads that barely qualify as roads now. We see figures darting back and forth as we're going along one. I don't think I've seen my friend drive in reverse that fast ever since. And one last one of my own. Working a closing shift at my shit fast food job. Driving home at about 1 a.m. See a hunched over human type figure. Looks up at me with the most horrible face I'd ever seen. Every creepy old person's face ever combined couldn't compare to how disgusting and ugly and wrinkled this thing was. Floor it the rest of the way home. Don't even say goodnight to my parents. Just rush into my room and lock every entrance. I could always just be a schizo dumbass, but I've seen M1 too many times to think so.